Let's get one thing straight. Men don't respect what's always available, overly forgiving or desperate to please. If you've ever wondered why he pulled away after you gave him everything, this is your wake-up call. Respect doesn't come from how much you love him. It comes from how much you love yourself. A man starts respecting you the moment he realizes you won't tolerate confusion, excuses, or emotional crumbs. Because the truth is, a woman with boundaries is a woman he can't stop thinking about. This isn't about being rude or distant. It's about being undeniably clear about your standards without over-explaining, over-giving, or begging for basic effort. In a world where women are taught to be nice at the expense of their peace, you stand out by drawing the line. That line, it's called self-respect, and men feel it before you even say a word. In this video, I'm giving you 5 powerful boundaries that instantly shift the dynamic in your favor. These aren't tricks or toxic tactics. These are mindset shifts that silently raise your value and make him step up or step out. So if you're tired of chasing, tired of being ghosted, tired of wondering what went wrong, this is where everything changes. Because once you set the right boundaries, you stop attracting confusion and start commanding real respect. Let's stop settling. Let's start leading with quiet confidence and unshakable standards. Your transformation starts now. Let's get into it. There's one word that holds more power than most women realize: no. But for so many of us, saying it feels like a risk. We're afraid of being seen as difficult, rude, cold, or unloving. We're taught to be agreeable, accommodating, and nice, even when it comes at the cost of our emotional peace. But here's the truth. A woman who can't say no will always attract people who take advantage of that silence. Men notice when you say yes to things that make you uncomfortable. They might not say it out loud, but they feel it. When you agree to things you don't want to do, when you let something slide just to keep the peace, when you prioritize their needs over your own, without balance, what you're really teaching them is that your boundaries are negotiable. And if your boundaries are negotiable, so is your value. The ability to say no without over-explaining, justifying, or softening it with guilt is a core pillar of self-respect. A man will test your limits, not because he's evil, but because he needs to know where the line is. And if you don't draw it, he will assume there isn't one. Think about this. When a man knows you're not afraid to say no, he instinctively becomes more intentional with how he treats you. He won't take your time for granted. He won't casually ask for favors without considering your schedule. He won't assume you'll accept the bare minimum. Why? Because your no carries weight, and that weight commands respect. Now, this doesn't mean you become harsh, closed off, or confrontational. It means you develop the emotional strength to choose yourself first. And the more you do it, the less guilt you feel. That shift from guilt to grace is where your power lives. When you say no to behavior that disrespects your values, you say yes to your growth. When you say no to last-minute plans, to inconsistent communication, to one-sided effort, you're actually opening the door to something greater. A relationship built on mutual respect. Not control, not people-pleasing, but partnership. You'll notice that the most magnetic, high-value women aren't the ones who give endlessly. They're the ones who know exactly when to stop giving. They know when to say no, this doesn't work for me, with calm, unwavering energy, and walk away if necessary. That level of self-containment is irresistible, because it signals to a man, I'm not afraid to lose you if keeping you means losing myself. So here's your permission. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to disappoint people who expect too much and give too little. You are allowed to choose your peace over their approval. And the more you do, the more the right man will see you not as difficult, but as a woman he must rise to meet. Remember, no isn't rejection, it's redirection, back to your work. One of the most overlooked ways women drain their power in relationships is by over-explaining. We've been conditioned to believe that if someone doesn't understand our feelings, we need to talk more, explain harder, clarify further, and justify why we feel the way we do. But here's the truth. The need to constantly explain yourself is rooted in the fear of not being accepted. And when you operate from that fear, you begin to shrink slowly, silently, and completely. Let's be clear. Communication is important, but over-explaining is not communication. It's self-abandonment disguised as clarity. It's when you twist yourself into emotional knots, trying to get someone to see your side, even when they're clearly not listening, not invested, or not capable of understanding you from a place of empathy. And every time you do that, you teach that person that your boundaries are flexible, that your voice needs permission, and that you're willing to argue for your right to feel what you feel. Men, especially emotionally unavailable ones, often use confusion as control. They act like they don't get it when you express a need. They ask why you're hurt when they cancel last minute or ignore your messages. And what do most women do in response? They explain. They soften. They think, if I just say it a different way, maybe he'll finally get it. But he already gets it. He just doesn't care enough to change. And the more you explain, the more he learns that you'll tolerate being dismissed. This is where your boundary comes in. You are not responsible for making someone understand what they are committed to ignoring. You don't owe endless explanations to someone who constantly invalidates your emotions. You are allowed to say, this doesn't work for me, and move on, without an essay, without convincing, without begging for comprehension. High-value women understand that their feelings are valid, even if they're not understood. They don't explain their standards, they enforce them. They don't argue to be seen. They walk away to be respected. Because the more you try to explain yourself to someone who isn't listening, the more you lose sight of your truth. You will never have to explain your worth to the right person. A man who respects you will listen the first time. He won't require emotional lectures to behave properly. He won't turn every conversation into a courtroom. He will acknowledge your feelings, not gaslight them. But he can't show up like that if you're always giving him emotional loopholes to crawl through. Here's what this boundary looks like in practice. If he crosses a line, you name it once clearly and calmly. If he dismisses it, you don't dive into an emotional monologue trying to make him understand. You watch his reaction, and if he shows indifference or defensiveness, you know that's not someone who's safe for your emotional vulnerability. You're not cold, you're clear. You're not distant, you're discerning. That distinction is everything, because the moment you stop over-explaining, you stop handing your power to people who don't know what to do with it. Let him wonder why you didn't argue. Let him sit with the silence when you don't respond with paragraph. Let him feel the distance that comes when a woman decides she's no longer emotionally available to someone who refuses to meet her halfway. At the end of the day, you don't owe a full breakdown for why your boundary matters. You simply owe it to yourself to stand by it. No justification, no negotiation, no guilt. When you stop over-explaining, you stop begging for a connection and start demanding respect. And that's when everything begins to shift in your favor. There's a quiet strength in a woman who chooses herself first, not from a place of ego, but from a place of deep self-respect. Yet so many women have been conditioned to believe that putting themselves first is selfish, cold, or too much. Society praises women who overextend, overgive, and over-sacrifice. But the harsh truth is that the more you make others your priority, especially in dating, the more you lose yourself in the process. And once you lose yourself, it's only a matter of time before he loses interest. Men respect women who respect themselves, period. When you prioritize your goals, your well-being, your time, and your emotional energy, you send a powerful unspoken message. I am whole without you. That energy is magnetic because it doesn't seek validation. It exudes value. A woman who moves from this place doesn't wait by the phone. She doesn't cancel plans just to fit into his. She doesn't mold her schedule, her needs, or her dreams to accommodate someone else's availability. When you start putting yourself first, some men will push back. They'll call you selfish. They'll try to guilt you. They'll label you difficult or unavailable. But that's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're no longer easy to control. And for men who thrive on access without effort, that's threatening. The truth is, the wrong man will call your standards a problem. The right man will rise to meet them. When you prioritize yourself, you attract a different caliber of love, the kind that honors your time, respects your space, and supports your growth. But that can only happen once you stop apologizing for putting you at the top of your list. This boundary plays out in the smallest ways. It looks like not answering that late night text just because you're lonely. It looks like keeping your weekend plans with friends instead of rescheduling because he suddenly became available. It looks like honoring your boundaries even when it would be easier to bend just to keep someone close. There's a false belief many women carry that love means sacrifice, that the more you do, the more you give, the more you pour, the more deserving you become. But the reality is, the more you pour from an empty cup, the less you have to give to someone who actually deserves it. Prioritizing yourself isn't about being self-centered. It's about being self-aware. It means knowing your limits, honoring your energy, and choosing peace over performance. You are not here to prove your worth through exhaustion. You are not here to be everything for everyone. You are not here to abandon yourself just to make someone else feel more comfortable. You are here to lead your life, and anyone who wants to walk beside you must be aligned with that vision. High-value women understand that they are the prize, not the pursuer. They know that being busy with a life they love is far more attractive than being available at someone else's convenience. They don't apologize for choosing themselves. They own it. And here's what happens when you do the same. You stop attracting men who want to fix you, test you, or tame you. Instead, you start attracting men who respect your independence, admire your drive, and want to add to your life, not control it. You don't need to say yes to everything. You don't need to dim your light just to make someone else feel secure. The more you prioritize yourself, the more the right man will see your power, not as a threat, but as the standard. Stop apologizing for choosing you. Start watching how quickly the world starts respecting you for it. There's nothing more confusing and emotionally draining than dealing with mixed signals. One day he's texting you non-stop, complimenting you and planning the future. The next day, silence, dry responses, a vague excuse, and suddenly you're left wondering, did I do something wrong? Did I imagine the connection? Should I reach out again? But here's the truth, mixed signals are already a clear message, and that message is, I'm not consistent enough to deserve your time. The biggest trap women fall into is believing they need to decode a man's inconsistency. We start reading between the lines, obsessing over texts, asking friends for advice, and creating excuses for his behavior. Maybe he's just busy. Maybe he's scared of falling. Maybe he's not ready. But in doing all of this, we ignore the one thing that matters most, how he makes you feel consistently. The boundary here is simple but powerful. You do not respond to inconsistency with attention. You do not chase confusion, because every time you respond to mixed signals, you lower the standard for how you deserve to be treated. You train him to believe that he can be hot and cold, that he can breadcrumb you just enough to keep you around without ever fully showing up. That's not attraction. That's emotional manipulation, and the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to walk away. A high-value woman sees inconsistency and chooses clarity. She doesn't wait around hoping he'll return to the sweet version of himself from last week. She doesn't invest in potential. She pays attention to patterns. If his effort is unpredictable, if he's loving one day and distant the next, she doesn't confront him with a desperate plea. She distances herself with quiet dignity. Because here's what most women don't realize. Your silence in the face of confusion speaks louder than any emotional conversation ever could. When you stop rewarding inconsistent behavior with your energy, the power dynamic shifts. He's no longer in control of your emotions. And no, this isn't about being cold or playing games. It's about self-protection. Mixed signals don't just waste your time. They slowly erode your self-worth. They make you question your intuition, doubt your standards, and stay attached to someone who has no intention of giving you stability. You deserve more than someone who only shows up when it's convenient for them. You deserve someone who's consistent even when life isn't perfect. Letting go of mixed signals also means letting go of the fantasy. Because often we're not even holding on to the man. We're holding on to the idea of who he was during his best moments. The charming, attentive version he showed you just enough times to keep you hooked. But if those moments don't come with consistency, they're not real. They're just bait. And your worth is not up for bait. If a man is serious about you, he will be clear. He won't confuse you. He won't make you guess. He won't give you the highs of passion followed by the lows of silence. He will create a safe emotional rhythm that makes you feel secure, seen and valued. That's what real interest looks like. So the next time a man sends you mixed signals, acts interested 1 minute and distant the next, don't ask yourself what you did wrong. Ask yourself why you're still entertaining someone who treats your time like an option. Because the strongest move you can make isn't confronting him, it's removing yourself from the game entirely. Mixed signals don't need a response, they need a boundary. And that boundary is your silence, your self-respect, and your refusal to settle for someone who can't even offer you clarity. The right man will never confuse you. He will reassure you through action, not words. Choose that kind of energy and leave the rest on read. One of the most powerful boundaries a woman can have is the ability to walk away, not when things become unbearable, but when a man's actions stop aligning with his words. Too many women stay stuck in the hope of who he could be, instead of accepting who he's consistently shown himself to be. And that gap between his words and his actions, that's where heartbreak, confusion, and self-betrayal begin. It always starts with promises. He says he's serious. He says he wants a future. He says you're different. And at first it feels real, but then time goes on and the effort fades. The communication becomes inconsistent. The gestures become smaller. He talks about what he wants to do, but never actually does it. And instead of walking away, you hold on tighter, thinking that if you're more patient, more understanding, more loyal, maybe he'll live up to his potential. But here's the truth. Potential is not a commitment. A man's character is not defined by what he says. It's defined by what he does consistently. If he says he wants you but doesn't show up for you, if he says you're a priority but always puts you last, if he says he respects you but crosses your boundaries, then his words are empty. And the longer you stay in a relationship built on empty promises, the more you lose respect for yourself. This boundary is about refusing to play the waiting game. It's about recognizing that loyalty to the wrong man is a form of self-abandonment. You are not here to fix, convince, or carry someone else's lack of effort. You are here to be loved in action, not in theory. A man who truly wants you won't keep you guessing. He won't leave you in emotional limbo. He won't say one thing and do another. His intentions will be clear, consistent, and confirmed through behavior, not just romantic words in late-night texts. And when those actions start slipping, your boundary must be to observe, not excuse, not explain, not beg, just observe. And when you see that the man in front of you is no longer living up to the standard he claimed to set, you leave, not angrily, not to teach him a lesson, but because your peace is more valuable than his potential. Walking away when someone's actions no longer match their words doesn't make you heartless. It makes you healed. It shows that your love has requirements. It shows that you are a woman who values herself enough not to be hypnotized by sweet talk and emotional breadcrumb. Here's what happens when you embrace this boundary. You start attracting men who mean what they say, men who show up, men who follow through, men who take responsibility, not just make excuses. Because when you refuse to tolerate consistency, you create space for integrity. Let him talk all he wants. Let him send long messages about how he's trying or figuring things out. Let him say you're the one he's afraid to lose. But if his actions don't follow those words with clarity, consistency, and care, then you owe it to yourself to walk away without hesitation. Because the woman who walks away with her dignity intact is far more powerful than the woman who stays hoping he'll change. You deserve love that's proven, not promised, devotion that's demonstrated, not just described, and a man whose actions never leave you wondering where you stand. So when words and actions no longer match, don't ask questions, don't wait, don't shrink, walk away. That's where your real power begins. We've been taught for far too long that attraction is all about chemistry, butterflies and excitement. That if your heart races when he calls, if you can't stop thinking about him, if the connection feels intense, then it must be real. But the truth is, real attraction isn't about chaos or emotional highs and lows. It's about consistency, clarity, and respect. Respect is the foundation. Respect is the glue. And without it, everything else falls apart. It's easy to get swept away by words, compliments, promises, passionate texts. They feel good in the moment. But here's the reality. Words don't mean anything if they aren't backed by action. And action doesn't mean anything if it doesn't come from a place of respect. A man can desire you without valuing you. He can want you, pursue you, and say all the right things, yet still lack the depth to honor your boundaries, your needs, and your worth. That's why learning to separate attention from respect is one of the most powerful things you'll ever do as a woman. Because here's the truth, most women don't hear enough. Respect is the highest form of love. It's what keeps desire alive beyond the honeymoon phase. It's what keeps communication strong during conflict. It's what allows you to feel safe, seen and supported, not just adored. Respect shows up in the little things. It's when he listens without interrupting, when he honors your time, when he keeps his word, when he doesn't test your boundaries, but protects them. It's when he's honest, even when it's hard, consistent, even when it's inconvenient, and kind even when there's nothing to gain. Without respect, attraction turns into a trap. You become emotionally invested in someone who makes you feel good one day and invisible the next. You end up justifying bad behavior, because you have a connection. But a connection without respect is just emotional addiction. And no matter how intense it feels, it will never become something healthy. You don't need someone who sets your heart racing. You need someone who sets your mind at ease. Someone who makes you feel emotionally safe, not emotionally starved. That's why the new standard for attraction is not how much he says he wants you, but how well he treats you when it actually matters. When you make respect your new standard, everything changes. You stop falling for potential. You stop romanticizing mixed signal. You stop holding on to people who give you just enough to stay, but never enough to feel truly secure. Instead, you start choosing men who show up fully, consistently, and with integrity. Respect also means respecting yourself. It means honoring your own boundaries, trusting your own voice, and walking away when someone shows you they can't meet your standards. It's not about being cold or hard. It's about being clear, about knowing that your softness deserves protection, not pressure, that your love is valuable and should be matched with equal effort and emotional maturity. Real attraction doesn't demand that you shrink.